Welcome to the Rob Liefeld Show featuring Robservations. I bring over 40 years experience in the world of comic books and entertainment. Across 5 decades, I offer insights and opinions on the business and the art of comic books and pop culture. If it's happening in games, in streaming, in movies, in comic books, we are covering it and discussing it right here. Hey everybody, and welcome to an all-new episode of the Rob Liefeld Show featuring Robservations. We are so glad that you can join us, that you can be part of the show today. Thank you wherever you are listening to us, whatever platform that you interact with us, if it's Apple, if it's Spotify, if it's iHeartRadio, if it's our YouTube platform. Welcome. And just like they say on the Haunted Mansion ride, welcome. All right, let's go. Today, I am so excited to talk about this particular subject matter. It excites me like very few do. I enjoy it so very much. Let me flip that real quick. There we go. Marvel and DC. We've got a brand new Marvel DC crossover out right now this week, and it inspired me to talk about the original Marvel DC crossovers and all that they became and expanded into. The Robservations Show, the Rob Liefeld Show, this is what we do. We talk comics, we talk pop culture, we talk the history of comics, we talk the history of pop culture, and we have a good time doing it. I have been doing this across 5 decades, 40 years. I have written, I have drawn, I have printed, published. Guys, comic books is in my blood. Comic books is my business. I am so thrilled, so humbled to have been a part of this industry, that this industry allowed me to finance a family and pay for our overhead and our stuff. And comic books has pretty much been the primary thing that I've been doing professionally since I was 18 years old, when I was hired as a teenager. Maybe one of comics' very few child actors, akin to a child actor. I speak all the time about so many of the other people who are in the space, and I compare it to sports and some other different arenas of entertainment and possibly even politics that I engage in. And I'm going to tell you, I always am interested in listening to people who have held positions in like a cabinet or an office. I'd like to hear from a Secretary of State who talks about the current international affairs. I like to hear from former people who held office, former people who held cabinet positions. It's much different than listening to a reporter or listening to a journalist who have never been actually a part of that process, who have had to be part of real-time negotiations in times of crisis, who have never had to cultivate votes in the world of sports. I think the guys who played the sport are the ones who I'm more interested in listening to. I want to listen to former quarterbacks. I want to listen to former running backs, cornerbacks, linebackers. That always, coaches, of course, coaches. That's the kind of stuff that really piques my interest. What I find more and more often is you're surrounded by, in many of these arenas, and it's now including comic books, you're just surrounded by guys at the clubhouse, sports and comics, a lot of shows, and I see a lot of these YouTubes, and it's funny because a couple of my buds in the business, very, very big names, have talked about how they are being approached with stuff that they heard on a YouTube, not me, these other people, and they're like, I can't believe people just believe it because it's on YouTube. So opening up today, one of the discussions before we get to our Marvel and DC is, guys, I really want to challenge you. Who are you listening to? Why are you listening to them? There are many novices, people who have never been part of the process, who have never assembled a comic, who've never hired an artist or a writer, and worked with a letterer and a design company and loaded it up to a publisher and worked with the printer and the distribution and the marketing and bought ads and done promotions. They literally just sit back and they give you your opinions as if they are an expert. And I would just ask you, who are you listening to and why are you listening to them? For the most part, I have seen a giant dearth, and they get the hits, and they get the hits for the reason. And here's the thing: is I believe they are trolls looking to troll, and trolls get hits. Maybe they can put something in a funny way, but for the most part, when I listen to these people, they have very limited knowledge, and it certainly does not come from the act of doing and making comics. You're like, well, Rob, but you can talk about movies without making a movie. Yes, and I acknowledge that. That is then my opinion. Most of the people that you are interacting with are from the opinion side of the ledger. They are not people who have made or created. And here's the deal: you know who I'm going to listen to with much more interest. I'm much more interested in listening to Steven Spielberg tell me about Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another than I am even Roger Ebert if he were still alive and with us. Of course, I want to hear a filmmaker on a filmmaker. I want to hear an artist on an artist. To the rest, we're just pundits. I can't speak with great expertise. I can read as much as I possibly can about my favorite teams in basketball or football, but until I'm on the sidelines and in real time and getting the data that they get and making decisions based on what they know, I'm just an armchair quarterback. And what you are listening to for the most part all the time in the world of comic books, what has, littered the YouTube space, are novices, and they are armchair quarterbacks. And if they entertain you, fantastic. No one's attacking them for their entertainment value. What I'm putting out there is really question the sources on almost anything and everything, especially when they talk about the history of comics. The history of comics that was written by guys like me is being shared to you by people who wrote who are reading to you what we wrote. They are sharing what we created, what we generated in real time. I can put you in the rooms where things happened. I was there in real time since the mid '80s. Okay, I was hired in 1986. I have been in this business that long. I have met publishers. I have met editors. I've told you often, I have seen 7 Marvel editor-in-chiefs. There's going to be an 8th. I guarantee you there's going to be an 8th. I have met at least 5 heads of DC. There will be a 6th. I will remain. I will continue as long as I'm physically healthy and able to make comic books, no matter who is behind the desk calling the shots at these big companies. Me, my peers, when they speak and when they talk, listen to them. They have real, very astute instincts and recollections of the ways things went down. All I'm doing is I'm putting caution out there. I'm telling you to be careful when you consider some of the stuff that you are absorbing, because a lot of the times they're getting it wrong and you are getting bad information that is going to then need to be corrected by fact, if facts indeed still do matter, which I believe they do matter. I believe they do matter. I wouldn't do the show if I didn't. And to that to that point, I am just so thankful for all of you who contact me. After each and every show, I get messages from Facebook, Instagram, from X. I get them from TikTok now. I get them messengered. I get the DMs. I get replies. I get comments. I get you guys contacting me directly, sharing with me how much you love some of the history that we've shared on the show. One of the best things about the show, I have read to you from interviews, from recollections, from blogs, from the people who were there if I wasn't there. And I believe they are as trustworthy as voices as you are going to hear. And many times people are like, wow, I didn't know that source. I wasn't aware of that. Well, yeah, because maybe some of the stuff was being written and published on the fringe. Now we have larger Substacks and stuff like that. But when it comes to the history of comics, we have been dedicated to getting it right. We have brought nothing but the finest receipts over 5.5 years now. I will source it. I will put you at the time and date of when this stuff was being written or when I shared it with you. Because today we're going to share some of the history of the Marvel and DC stuff. And we're going to go back 5.5 years to one of my first shows, one of my earlier shows with all the people who have jumped on. And many of you have told me you just can't possibly go back and do 470, 468 shows. I don't know how many there are. I'm a psycho. I do 2 shows a week because I enjoy it. I love it. And when I don't, I don't. I take breaks when I need to. But one of these early episodes was discussing a lot of what went into putting up the earliest of the Marvel and DC crossovers and how they came about. And today we're going to dive right into that. Because with Deadpool Batman coming out and selling what looks to be over 500,000 copies, over 500,000, it is kind of the event book of the year, the big book it's the must-have book of the fall. I'm going to be honest, I think the book falls a little short, and it's the reason it falls short is in that second word, short. Most everything in this book is a short story, and while I enjoy some of the short stories, and I think the bright, shining light of the entire book is the work that Adam Kubert and Kevin Smith put into creating their Green Arrow Daredevil story. It is breathtaking. Adam Kubert and Kevin Smith, they met the moment. They rose to the occasion, and with, what is it, 8 or 10 pages? I didn't get the exact count, but it is a short story. They moved me the most. They excited me the most. They inspired me the most. The best artwork in the book is Adam Kubert's art. The best pacing and the best awareness of how best to entertain us with the space that they had is in that short story. A lot of short stories. Some I liked. Some were just kind of meh to me. I mean, no offense. It was just like, this isn't what I would have indulged in. And maybe if we had removed this, we would have had more room for the main event. And the biggest crime, I think I counted 23 pages. Maybe it's 22. The main feature is a very short feature, which is going to put it in direct contrast with some of the excellent books that I'm going to show you today that had 60, 70 pages to share with you, that had the length, that had the ability to give you the kind of story that an event like this deserves. Deadpool Batman deserves a 48-page story, not a 22-page story. There's just not enough time to establish stakes and consequences and great moments. It's short on action. It's just short on everything because the whole book is based on shorts. I think the real victory of the book and what I've seen myself, and as I am broadcasting this to you, I'm speaking to you more as a retailer. Liefeld, where do you get off? I get off having sold 1,000 copies of Deadpool Batman. I have sold 1,000 copies of Deadpool Batman as of this recording. And as of this recording, we come to you as I woke up this morning, and we are still the number one source for comic books and pop culture entertainment across the podcast platforms. We rose to number 2, our highest ranking in our division, in the overall arts of any time in 2025. And I just want to thank you again for powering this show. Thanks for being there. And when you say, where do you get off life? Well, where do I get off coming up to this microphone and telling you about Deadpool Batman is, it's been a giant success for me. Signing these books as the creator of Deadpool and having my name in each and every copy, I took a giant position. My wife is best quoted because she sees where I'm like, I don't have room for all these boxes when I bring the shipments in. And I'm like, man, there's nothing better than getting empty boxes and putting them in the trash because we have taken all the inventory out. And that goes for any and all books that I print direct to consumer, the DTC books that we've been doing for 2 years, whether it's Last Blood or the Youngblood DTC or the giant size Youngblood that I've been doing this last year. Nothing is better than when the shipments get emptied because we know we put comic books in the consumer's hands. We got them to the audience. Well, on Deadpool Batman, I took a very aggressive position. I bought 1,000 comics. I divvied it up 100 here, 60, 80. The minimum of any cover that I bought was 40, and then I got a ton of incentives that pushed it over to the 1,000 mark. So you at some point go, well, did I order too heavy? No, I ordered just right. I possibly could have ordered a little more, but you'd rather be safe than sorry. And like we had Mike Caden from Comics, Tunes, and Toys on here a couple weeks back, like he said, you got to moneyball this stuff, and I moneyballed it. Even though I'm the creator of Deadpool and I can offer my signature on what is going to be less than 0.01% of the print run of 500,000, maybe 0.02 at best. I was even like, I'm not sure people are going to show up for this because this is the most I've ever ordered as a retailer, thinking as a retailer for my live streams and for my website. So I sold 1,000, but so watching over multiple live streams and conducting internet sales, the success and the joy that people are finding this are in the covers. They like all the Rogue and the Poison Ivy cover. I see Scotty Young has the Lobo and Wolverine cover, and I'm sure he's crushing it with it. I have none of those, but I'm sure people are absolutely crushing it. The stuff that goes beyond the Deadpool and the Batman stuff is surprisingly really catching more attention than I had anticipated. The Batman and Wolverine. There's a Frank Miller Batman and Wolverine story. It's one of my favorite things in the entire book. They have a dedicated cover. There's a Steve McNiven Wolverine Batman. That's literally my favorite cover of the entire series. It's fantastic. The Ryan Stegman Batman Deadpool is my bestseller. I could literally have sold probably another 200. That is the one that caught fire. It's the one I ordered the heaviest. So I in being aggressive, I still fell short, just like I think the book falls short because it's a lot of short stories. Even the main feature just is not given the full length to build it out. So what the entertainment value comes from the Infinity Gauntlet cover that mimics George Perez's Infinity Gauntlet #1 cover. It comes from the Daniel Warren Johnson. It comes from the Art Germ, Ileana slash Magic, Catwoman. So I think a lot of people are having fun with the different interactions that are on the cover. I saw Midtown Comics has a Hulk and a Green Lantern cover, and I'm like, I want that. That looks rad. That looks rad. It looks the Ed McGuinness Hulk Green Lantern looks better than anything in the book concerning those two characters. So of course I want that. So we are just having a great time. It is the event book. I think they all. I wish the main feature would have been longer. I think Zeb Wells would have had more to work with. I think it was. He's definitely got his hands tied with the limited amount of time that they gave him to expand the feature. And then maybe there's one or two short stories that I would not have mind taking out, even though I thought they were quality. They were good. They were okay. That's what meh means to me. They were okay. I'm going to use okay instead of meh. I would have enjoyed maybe having 8 more pages of Deadpool and Batman and less of one of the short stories. But again, Kevin Smith, Adam Kubert nailed it. Green Arrow Daredevil is the single best, most exciting. Wow. Like, I was so impressed and so inspired. And that's what I look for in a comic is to be inspired. And whether it was Esad Ribic or Ryan Stegman or Scotty Young or any of the other covers. I heard from multiple sources Ryan Stegman's cover was the top ordered overall, even over the A and B covers. That's what's called nailing an image. That homage to Todd McFarlane Hulk. I think it's 340, the Wolverine Hulk, and he's got Batman Deadpool. Right cover, right time, boom, right artist, explosion, big time. So with that out there, it made me reflect, and it reflected that I was alive when the first Marvel DC superhero crossover occurred. They had combined their efforts to do a Wizard of Oz, and it was advertised as a Marvel and DC collaboration. But Superman and Spider-Man teamed up 49 years ago. In 2026, we're going to hit the 50-year mark. They're about to announce the 50th anniversary. They're going to commemorate it. DC and Marvel are going to continue to get together and do these. And that's something else of note is that when Marvel and DC get together and they cooperate, it is because they need each other. The industry was looking a little scary about 15, 16 months back, and they entered into these negotiations in order to produce books that they knew that would reward the fan and the retailer, and good for them. This is definitely going to put money in retailers' pockets. It's going to excite the fan base. They are showing up in droves. I had a couple of the local stores send me pictures of the long lines that were coming in to get the comics. So this is a win all around. And remember, when you quote me, I just feel like the lead story should have had more pages in it. And I would have lost one of the short stories. No, I'm not going to say which one. Certainly not the Green Arrow Daredevil, which I'm heaping all the deserved praise on. But it's a great thing. I'm glad they did it. When they've worked together in the past, it is out of a necessity. Not always out of respect, out of necessity. And we're going to journey back, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be easy to rank these. The number 5 is the surprise, and I'm just going to get that out of the way right now. In the 90s, they started doing a lot more crossovers, and you can absolutely they put out their omnibus. They put out this great omnibus that I'm going to hold up that came out this last spring. This is repurposing. I got the George Perez one that repurposed the original trade paperback cover. I think it's one of the greatest George Perez, most exciting illustrations. Now, there's going to be a couple that I'm going to omit from here, and you're not going to understand why, but I'm going to share with you. I'm going to tell you right now, I think the most unfulfilled, and it was the biggest and got the most attention way back when. But after many years of waiting, over 2 decades, George Perez finally got to do his Justice League Avengers crossover. And for me, it was a giant disappointment because it was overloaded. It needed a good editorial hand. And I believe George's excitement and his weight on the project in terms of we've wanted George to do this forever. We've got to give this over to George. This is a big deal. This is a big moment. It needed a heavier editorial hand in regards, because myself and others, and I read to you an excerpt from Eric Larson in the Comics Journal around that time, where he's like, everything is gone. It's like, where's Waldo? It's one of the things that George, it was a strength that he had, and he certainly put it on display in one of his most heralded works, Crisis on Infinite Earths. It may be his most decorated, most famous, greatest work, where he juggled the entire cast of the DC universe. Every possible single face and character they tried to stick in that, and it was so deftly, cleverly done. There was room to breathe. You never felt suffocated. It was the complete opposite of JLA Avengers. which was 4 issues, over 200 pages, and it was overstuffed. And it was literally a Where's Waldo. I didn't feel, maybe towards the end, Superman got a moment, but it was hard to find really big, great, breathtaking moments, especially as the guy who owned the original 22 pages that George did for the original 1983 or 1982 Justice League Avengers crossover that was coming. I think it was 83. Those pages, which was just the 8 to 9 Justice Leaguers and the 8 to 9 Avengers, were some of George's most inspired pages. We will possibly, in the history that I'm going to read to you, go through the fallout of all that, but it came down to a lot of mixed messaging and miscommunication between DC and Marvel, and both of them pointing fingers back and forth at each other. And I remember being around George Perez in real time at the conventions in 1984 and 85 when the crossover had fallen apart. He was furious. He was furious. When you go talk to Marvel, Marvel was furious. George was at DC at the time. And the original Justice League Avengers was commemorated by an interview that George and Jim had done, Jim Shooter and everybody involved, with the Comics Interview magazine, with a single piece of art that put the Justice League and the Avengers on either side of themselves, like shaking fists ready to throw down. It is one of my favorite George Perez pieces ever. George offered to sell me the original 22 pages in 1992. I bought them and I held on to them because I thought I had uncut footage of the greatest unpublished story ever. Then in early 2000, they announced that George was going to do it. It was going to be 4 issues. It was going to be over 200 pages total, and he was going to do it with Kurt Busiek. And I just bought each and every issue as it came out, and just thought, once again, it is not anywhere near my top 10 favorite George Perez jobs. And how is that? How is that even possible? I don't put it over a single favorite issue of the Teen Titans. A single is Justice League 200. The work that he did on that, and he only did part of those issues, I put above that. I put Fantastic Four issues, Avengers issues, the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Nothing's dislodging that. I would put like 5 issues of Crisis on Infinite Earths in the top 10. And I'd still, there's no room for the Justice League Avengers. In my opinion, this is my opinion, as somebody who loved George and was one of his biggest fans. And here's the kicker. A couple of these pages have gone up on Heritage Auctions, and in the last decade, I've bought a couple of them. A Flash Quicksilver page, just for kicks, because the price was pretty low. And I decided, well, for this price, I'll clip it, I'll take it, I have it, I own it. But on the whole, I thought that it lacked a giant central urgency. So it's not making it into my top 5 of Marvel DC crossovers. What is, and I'm so glad that George got the opportunity, and I can't imagine the happiness he had, but somebody should have had a heavier editorial hand on him and the entire creative team, and just lessening the amount, the crowded denseness of that crossover. And it's the one thing that everyone you talk to feels the same. The whole thing became a giant Where's Waldo. I told this to George to his face. This isn't speaking ill of George post. He knew this. This was not a surprise to him. He didn't care, obviously. He had a good time. Why would he care? I'm just one guy. I'm just one fan. My number 5 came out at the end of the 90s. It's Superman Fantastic Four. It has a killer Alex Ross cover that he did over Dan Jurgens. This is in the omnibus that you could probably still get a version of online. It is written by Dan Jurgens. It is inked by Art Taber, and it is colored by Greg Wright, and it is beautiful. It is great. It has everything I want from a crossover. It has high stakes, good interaction between the two stars. You got Dan Jurgens, who had made all his bones off Superman, had become the premier Superman artist of the age, and inked by Art Taber, who always collaborated superbly. Then you had a nice, Superman Gate was given a great intro. Fantastic Four is given a great intro. And Superman Galactus is something that we had all craved, all wanted. I mean, look at this, Franklin Richards and Superman. I mean, these pages, this is wonderful. I don't see a lot of these out there. I wonder if Dan's hung on to these, given how special and how big the moment is. Art Taber, one of the best inkers and embellishers of an age, was just crushing it. Whenever he and Dan got together, the art was so brilliant and crisp and bouncy and slick. And Dan and Art just deliver all the goods here. This is one of my favorites. And I'm skipping over some stuff that'll spoil it for you. there's a glimpse of it. If you've never seen it, but there's a spoiler right there with Superman. But Galactus is given his full due. It's big, it's bold, it makes the most of its, I think, 48 pages of what a blast. I mean, just reliving this now. This is just a terrific adventure. You got top creative teams, top penciler, writer. Oh my gosh, meet in the moment. Meeting the moment, okay? This spread is meeting the moment. Look at that Superman. I'm sorry. Look at that Fantastic Four. This is the kind of stuff we live for. Collected in the omnibus, Superman Fantastic Four is my number five favorite DC Marvel crossover. It checked all the boxes. Superman being my favorite Marvel DC superhero, and Fantastic Four with Galactus is the perfect pairing. I remember when it was announced, I got so excited. And at this point, it's 1990 something. I've been in the business a long time, but that really excited me. They had done Punisher and Batman. They had done Silver Surfer, Superman. All of that stuff is in here. What fought to take this place was John Byrne did a Dark Side Galactus, which is very intriguing, which is great. But I think Dan Jurgens, Art Taber, Greg Wright, Alex Ross painting over Dan on that cover. That's the cherry on top. I highly recommend this. It's a fantastic book. So the rest of these are going to be almost in real time as they spelled out. Let me tell you why. You're a kid, you're buying comics, you don't even know this is coming. You don't even know the stuff that you found out. We didn't have news sites, we didn't have the internet. I say this all the time just to redirect your focus, to redirect and go back to 1976. How would I learn about something? Well, certainly it wasn't going to be on TV. There was no cartoons that were going to have a comic book commercial on it. We hadn't gotten that far yet. Yes, there were comic book cartoons. Yes, there was a Super Friends. Yes, there was Superman and Aquaman and Batman and reruns from their 60s cartoons. Yes, there was Spider-Man, but the way comic fans found out about stuff was from the ads in the actual comic books. And I got one to bring you. This is Marvel Team Up. This is 1976. It's Spider-Man. It's Killraven. It's awesome. I love it. This is my dirty, grimy 1976 copy. This is not a 9 anything. I'm surprised if it's a 7 or a 6 something. But here is the point. Glasses on to make the point. You're flipping through this comic. You got it because it says Spider-Man and it's got Killraven, and you always liked Killraven. Then there's a full page ad. Wait, what is this in the center? Spider-Man, Superman, it's $2.50. The rest of these are $2 if I mail away. $2.50. Hubba, brother. Wow. This is how I found out. Ads in the comic that this was coming. That a Superman Spider-Man team up was coming in the first place. Where I eventually got it was at the liquor store, the infamous liquor store on Magnolia and Broadway that I would frequent in 1976 to buy many of my comic books. My very favorite George Perez Avengers I was buying at that time. My Dave Cockrum X-Men I was buying at that time. My just arrived on the scene John Byrne Champions were starting to pop up. The Justice League by Dick Dillon. All of these books. The final Teen Titans revival before the George Perez one, with Don Heck on art and Rich Buckler on covers. Issue number 50, which I own the cover of. I pulled it out of that liquor store. The Superman Spider-Man that I'm going to get to, it's certainly not my number 4, but I'm going to give you a flash right now. This is something that I pulled off, okay? The actual magazine section, the magazine shelves in the liquor store. This is not my original one. My original one, I'm going to flash to you. It is signed. I'll get to it. It's signed by Neil Adams. It's signed by Stan Lee. And I'm going to tell you why Neil Adams? Well, some of you may not know, and I'm going to tell you, but we're putting the cart before the horse. I'm going to get to my number 4, and it was ironically this was number 3, the third one that they released. The third of the crossovers that they released was Batman Hulk. Okay, they had done 2 Superman Spider-Mans, and let me tell you something. There was 5 years between 1976 and between 1981 when Superman Spider-Man number 2 came out, and then in 1980 in 19 early 82, we got this bad boy, okay? And look at how old this is, like a yellow bag. That's how old my copy is. This is my beat up copy. They had Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, which was DC's kind of their John Buscema, their incredible, could draw anything and draw anything, great guy. Incredible figure work. You know what I love about this? In the back, they show you all the different sketches that they chose. This is the kind of stuff I love. The covers that almost were okay, and you see a couple of really good ones there. The sketches, and then I'm holding up the inside back cover of Batman Hulk, and just to show you the sketches that they broke down in a finished cover that they almost went with, but then they decided at the last minute to change. This is by Len Wein, and it is by Jose Garcia Lopez. Dick Giordano is the embellisher, and then there's also, you can tell, Mike DiCarlo inked a bunch of this. But there are spectacular shots, especially the manner with which that Garcia Lopez would stage and crop these scenes. And Garcia Lopez had done a couple. He did a Superman and Wonder Woman prior to this, just a year before this, or no, two to 3 years, 1978. He did Superman and Wonder Woman, maybe 78, maybe 79, maybe 77. Yeah, this is my original copy. It's not in great shape. Don't lose your lunch over it. Garcia Lopez had some Neil Adams influences in him, as well as just an outstanding kind of understanding George Bridgman figure drawing. That is definitely a Neil Adams. My fingers on it in one of these pages. Influence. Neil Adams had just a profound influence on everybody. Something that I have not mentioned yet, but these early ones, these first crossovers, these first three were all giant size treasury editions. They were these giant, yet they weren't on your spinner rack. You were getting these off the shelves. Oh, look at that. Hulk, as a giant Hulk fan, Hulk is on TV during this. One of the reasons they gave him the spotlight. Here is the outstanding back cover. You got Two-Face, okay? You got Abomination, you got Joker. Okay, they packed this thing, and this thing, the one thing I loved as a kid, oh my gosh, look at the art. Look at these illustrations. Look at that Batman. Look at that Batman down here. Look at this full figure. Garcia Lopez knew how to design an exciting page, incorporate incredible figure work. The story is fun. It's a fun interaction. The only thing I think that we are all like left going, wait, what? Batman could not on any level, come on, battle or like right here. Batman's that ankle's getting snapped the minute Hulk gets it, okay? Hulk is really, he's depowered a little for this. It's not a giant complaint. I can tell you from firsthand experience getting this, I got this at a U-Totem market. This was the right book at the right time. The right two characters, because Hulk was a big giant star on television every Friday night with Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby. And you got it had put him on the map when they started production. I think the Hulk was in its last season, but he had definitely made his mark and was pivoting towards reruns. This came out in 1981. Another giant treasury size edition. It is my number 4 because of the Len Wein storied Hall of Fame killer writer. He had written both Batman and Hulk for Marvel and DC. You had Garcia Lopez, who had not drawn any Marvel characters at the time, so him drawing any Marvel characters, especially Hulk, was exciting to us because he was primarily a DC guy, okay? So this, you can just see how special this is. I would recommend always getting these in their most original form, the Treasury Edition. As I stick this back in this skanky bag that it has been, I have all my Treasury Editions stacked. Some of them bagged and board. I'm going to get a nicer edition of this one as I've been rebuying some of them. This is I just literally bought this is like as close to a mint condition Spider-Man, Superman, and I'm going to even open it and compromise it to share it with you. So our top 3 of my best and favorite Marvel comics. These come with some stories, and I told these stories 5.5 years ago. So I'm going to leap right into this because my 2 and 3 are the Superman Spider-Man Treasury editions. Okay, these are my number 2 and number 3. Number 2, number 3. Okay, fantastic. Nothing but the best, the very best memories associated with these epic comics. Let me tell you about how this all came down and how from the somebody from the Richard Nixon White House is responsible for these two franchises getting together in the first place. How's them apples, right? I mean, this is just absolutely nuts. Saw it in an ad, knew that it existed, saw that I could order it, but held out. Maybe I could find it. Boom! It showed up. The ad in the comic was a precursor for what was coming to my newsstand. It came. I was, obviously couldn't have been more like worked up for this incredible, crossover. Are you really going to make it this hard for me to get in a 5.5 years ago? And I did my deep dive research. I went in, I quoted some of the greats and shared them with you. And what we're going to do today is we are going to walk back down some of the stuff that I talked about again, because so many of you have joined the show. I'm gonna hold on to my number 1. It may be obvious what I'm going to, but we're going to combine these two the Spider-Man's the two Spider-Man Supermans. 5 years between them. 5 years. 1976, 1981. There was more time in between Marvel and DC getting together back then than there was between Star Wars movies. Okay, Star Wars 1977, Empire Strikes Back 1980, 1976, Superman, Spider-Man 1981. Good God Almighty, were these people not getting along? Was it that obvious? When you read this, you'll understand. Yes, that's exactly what was behind it. There was always interpersonal dynamics that were threatening, giving us more of the stuff that we wanted to scoop up and love on. Okay, yes, I said love on because I did love on. Okay, so when I say somebody from the White House, when I originally recounted this 10 years ago, I was doing a show in Cincinnati. And I was going to take, I knew I was going to be flying with Stanley, and I knew that Neil Adams was going to be there, and I'd seen Neil a bunch, and we had talked about the book a bunch, but not in kind of the depth that we would at this show. I packed my original copy. I'm going to slip right here. Okay, I'm going to slip away. I'm going to get it. This is my original copy. There is Neil Adams. There is Stan Lee's signature. Stan Neil, okay? When Stan had kind of a smudgy pen when he signed it, but it doesn't matter. I witnessed it. Stan and Neil both signed this. I'm going to get into that. I was packing this away, and I was so excited that this would accompany me in my portfolio to Cincinnati in 2015, and I'd have these guys sign it. I said, as I am about to board a flight to Cleveland for a comic book convention that has a number of guests who I definitely want to interact with and encounter, I made sure that I grabbed from my office these 2 team-up comic books and tucked them away into my portfolio. They wouldn't fit in my bag. They were too big to fit in my art bag that I carry, but my portfolio will keep these 2 comics snug, clean, and flat. I packed them because I'm going to see Stan Lee. I'm going to see Stan Lee and I'm going to see Neil Adams, and these 2 gentlemen play a huge part in both these comic books that I'm going to bring with me on this trip, and I'm going to present both of them because I want to get their John Hancocks, their signatures on these. I also want them to share with me a little story and a little bit of the history because I have been able to decipher and put together many of the details that were there when these comic books were being formed, but I wanted it straight from the mouths of these guys. I called these comics the Clash of Titans, and it was, ironically, the first one was billed as the Battle of the Century, and you're like, well, wait, how does Spider-Man fighting Superman? How does that even work? Is that even possible? I think it's cleverly addressed and pulled off and executed perfectly in the context of the show, in the context of the story. I go back to talk about how it was in the larger section of the liquor store and the grocery store markets that I would find these. They wouldn't fit on the spinner rack. You had to turn left, walk by a massive array of glass bottles of alcohol, liquor, vodka to get to the spinner racks. But in the store, there was the books section right when you open the door and you turn left. There was the magazines, your Time, your Life, your Sports Illustrated, your Home Better, your Good Housekeeping, and your sci-fi magazines and Marvel Treasury and DC Treasury editions. They also carried Planet of the Apes, Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, all the magazines that Marvel had leaned into, as well as the Warren magazines, the Rook, Vampirilla. They would only rack these on the shelves, obviously, because as I said, they're too big for the comic book spinner racks. The Treasury Edition comics were marketed to fans as something special. Look how big the art was. Look how big the canvas is that you're looking at giant comic books. And what do we love? We love bigger is better. We equate that as stronger. And definitely when it comes to the art on these books, I equate them as bigger is better. Absolutely 1000% bigger is better. So, having obtained both of these comics and packing them away, made me seek out some of the origins of this. And, especially encountering both of these with Superman and Spider-Man battling Doc Ock, Lex Luthor, the Parasite, Doctor Doom. I mean, it's a who's who of the most important villains that I dig. Big time bad guys, big time stakes. So, as I've told you, there's no previews catalog. There's no comic book stores. And sometimes you would go in and have to buy something that was ripped or torn. The people of this generation love for me to remind everybody that this stuff is always compromised. You never got mint editions were hard to come by. Store owners didn't care. They bought them. If they didn't sell them, they tore off the covers and they sent them back because that's how they'd get refunded. The publisher would then acknowledge by receiving the cover that they've got a damaged copy. It can't possibly sell, so they'll now put that credit towards the next books that are coming out, and they just hope that the returns never exceed what's going out so that they can keep the balance in the positive. How did all this come together in the first place is what I wrote back there. And I'm going to tell you right now, it lands with Watergate. Watergate, what is a Watergate, you're asking me, many of you. Watergate is a hotel, and it's a place where an act occurred that resulted in the resignation of the President of the United States. When I was just a kid, I watched Richard Nixon resign. I watched him go to the airplane with my parents. I watched him bid adieu. It was a scandal. It was called Watergate. It brought Richard Nixon down. There were two reporters, Woodward and Bernstein, famously portrayed by Redford and Hoffman, in the movie adaptation of the best-selling memoir, All the President's Men, which covered so many of the details. It's a great movie, especially given that Robert Redford has passed. It is a top 5 Robert Redford must-watch. You're asking yourself, Liefeld, what are you doing here? Why are you talking about Nixon and All the President's Men? Well, here's the deal. This happened because the agent who represented Woodward and Bernstein, Bob Woodward, Carl Bernstein, was a man named David Obst, O-B-S-T. He represented both of them as they wrote their book, and they got an option and made a movie. So he is directly tied to the reporting and the scandal that is Watergate. He was also a comic book fan. And he had brought both this Superman Spider-Man team up to the president of Marvel and the president of DC Comics, believing that it was in their best interest to combine their most popular characters and create a giant comic book event. He felt, in expressing his desire to both the heads of Marvel and DC, that the marketing and the commercial viability of this team up would be worth whatever effort was going to be put forth to make it happen. So David Obst, an agent for two of the most famous journalists who contributed to bringing a scandal to light and taking down a president, their agent is who we thank for the battle of the century, Superman and Spider-Man coming together. David Obst is thanked in the foreword of Superman Spider-Man by Stan Lee and Carmen Infantino, both of the publishers of the respectable Marvel and DC imprints at the time. They both acknowledged that this gentleman urged them to get this done. If you're wondering if I'm more excited than normal today, I think you've picked that up the entire time. I love these special events, and this one was truly something that moved everybody my age. There's a reason guys like my age are buying nicer and nicer and nicer editions. There's a Treasury guy. He's a really cool guy. I wish I had his name on the tip of my tongue. I know him. I see him. I saw him, and I bought from him last year at WonderCon. I bought from him at San Diego. I buy because my buddy always says, Rob, I want the toniest, the most prime condition version of these Treasury editions to replace some of the beat up ones. So I've kind of co-signed, and we hunt with them together, and we buy the different stuff that fits our needs. And if you get a chance and get a real nice copy of these, great. If you can just read them in their original form, whatever format, whatever beat up copy you may have, because I have multiples, do that as well. The excitement that this generated, I didn't yet have a clubhouse. I didn't yet have a group of friends. It would be a year from when I would move from this location to my next location, where I had now 5 young men in my neighborhood. I had Mondo, 2 mics, Craig, okay, and Eddie. And we partied and played. I mean, when I say party to a 10 and 11-year-old is riding your bike all day, skateboards, playing with BB guns, fantasizing about movies that we've seen, just going to the donut store, going to the ice cream shop, talking comics, pop culture, sports all the time. That's what partying is to 11-year-olds in 1977, 1978. David Opes was also the one that convinced them, look, you can charge $2 for this. The cover price on this in the ad here in the Marvel Team-Ups that I showed you, Marvel Team-Up number 45, which has an ad featuring Spider-Man and Superman, that's where it says $2.50. That one's $2.50. Everything else is $2. But if you bought it at the liquor store, at the 7-Eleven, at the grocery store like I did, it was a $2 purchase. David Opes convinced them, for an event like this, you'll be able to charge up. He says that people will gladly pay more for this. They'll pay $2, he told them. At that point, comic books were 30 cents. So David Opes, a literary agent for obviously 2 big signature figures of their time, was key in helping us, helping Stan Lee, Carmen Infantino give the green light to this. $2 for a comic book was a big deal. I had to grab all the nickels and the quarters, and I had to grab all the extra lunch money and the lawn mowing stuff that I possibly could in order to afford it. Because, I mean, that's 6 comics right there. That's 6 comics at the time. So this is Jerry Conway, who writes this, was writing Spider-Man. He was writing Avengers. He was writing Justice League. He was writing Superman. And he also done a very long extended stint on Spider-Man. And so he was the perfect guy to merge both worlds. The penciler was a gentleman named Ross Andru. Ross Andru had been an artist on Superman, and he had done a giant run on Spider-Man that was ongoing even at this time. They tapped Ross Andru because of his mutual history with Superman in the 60s and 70s and his current association with Spider-Man. Dick Giordano was the premier inker of the time. I've mentioned his name a lot recently. From his studio and his tutelage came Terry Austin, Joe Rubinstein, Klaus Janson, 3 of the greatest inkers of the Bronze Age, 3 of the greatest inkers of all time. Dick was incredibly influential. He was an artist who could draw and pencil. I have original pages from Batman and Black Canary team-ups, Brave and the Bold, and Aquaman comics that he did. He was Neil Adams' preferred inker when Neil couldn't ink himself. He was the guy they chose to basically bat cleanup, do the beautiful embellishment on Ross. So Dick Giordano also was an executive editor at DC Comics at the time and would go on to be the publisher. But before that, as I said, he was the premier inker. So Neil Adams. A lot of guys in Neil Adams' studio are working on this book, and you'll see that Terry Austin, who was on the scene at the time and very aware to us, whatever his name would appear, he had a very distinct way of inking backgrounds and figures with his very crisp dynamic lines. 90% of the backgrounds in Superman, Spider-Man are inked by Terry Austin. And you can see it. Terry Austin, again, working out of Continuity Studios alongside Dick Giordano, alongside Neil Adams. I'm telling you this because this is where these, so that it would be very clear that is where many of these pages were resting while they were being done in production, was that they were in Neil Adams' studio. So he would walk by these pages. He would see these pages. So this is a Terry Austin inked canister. I don't know, it's page 14. Lex Luthor is holding a Terry Austin inked canister, okay? Very to anybody who's followed Terry Austin's work, this is a very obvious, very crisp. It was the way that he did tech, cleaner and crisper than anybody else. I'm trying to get a very a big background shot that you can see the breadth. Okay, these backgrounds, especially right here. These are Terry Austin's. Yeah, stick with the. Listen to me on the background stuff, guys. You're going to really dig this. These are Terry Austin ink backgrounds on page 2, right here. Buildings. Dick Giordano was primarily doing figures, and this figure right here has a bunch of Neil Adams rendering on it. I've jumped right into it. I'm just going to get right into it. This stuff is being produced at Neil Adams Continuity Studio. So Neil Adams is going to have his say. Neil Adams is going to weigh in on this because, as he told me, Rob, this is one of the most important at the time. In 1976, this is one of the biggest, most important comic books to ever be published. And he thought that Ross Andru was fantastic. He thought he was a great pick. These are Terry Austin windows and building frames that you can see in this giant splash page. That's Terry. These inks are Dick Giordano, but this background, this building, these lines, that's Terry Austin. This is called All Hands on Deck as we create a masterpiece. Let's get back to Cincinnati and that convention, and I approach Neil Adams with my copy, the one that was signed that I already showed you. And Neil says to me, are you handing this to me because you know the work that I did in this? I said, yes, Neil. This is exactly why I'm handing this to you. He says, okay. I just know, I haven't put it out there in the biggest way. I said, tell me what's going on. He has shared this in interviews that have made them their way into interview magazines. Neil said, Rob, I thought that Ross was fantastic and he was doing some great figure work and the storytelling was dynamic, but I felt like the moment was not being met in terms of some of the drawing and the figures and the faces. And I approached Dick Giordano and I asked him, I said, may I make some improvements on this? And Dick Giordano said, well, I got to talk to Ross and see if Ross will approve. Neil Adams is next level. He is, as I've said, I think the top comic book illustrator that ever journeyed through our business. He pushed the envelope. He raised the bar. He inspired dozens upon dozens of talents, some of which you are enjoying today. Neil said that once Dick had informed Ross that he was going to polish his pencils. I mean, what's Ross Andru going to do? No, greatest of all time. Don't touch me. You're doing it for free. You're doing it uncredited. Okay. When you see Neil's work on this book, and I'm just going to cut to the chase since we have the video component I'm going to open. Right here is the most obvious. You are not looking at right here. This is not on the big momentous when heroes clash. This is, and again, guys, look at look at how big these pages are. Stupendous. I'm going to have to buy another one of this. Page 47. That is not a Ross Andru Superman. It is in gesture, but that is a Neil Adams face, Neil Adams musculature, rendering, lighting, the shadow behind the leg on the thigh, the rendering on the cape, the drop shadows of the cape. That's Neil Adams. Neil Adams also did some musculature. That's a Neil Adams arm, waist. This is Neil Adams drawing in, because come on, he's not just going to do Superman and leave Spider-Man. He's going to do both. It doesn't end there. When this sold at Heritage Auction around 2016, 2017, I may be off by a year. This is also a heavily rendered Neil Adams. Neil said he took his, and the Spider-Man as well. I'm holding up page 50 and then page 51 right here. Neil knew where the big, moments were in this book. And that Spider-Man, that Superman, Neil pointed this out to me. He confirmed. He said, yes. He even touched this face. That is much more of a Neil Adams face than a Ross Andru face. Let me give you a comparison. Ross was great. He was good. But I came across, and certainly Neil could only devote so much time to this. But this is more of a Ross Andru face, untouched, not unpolished by Neil Adams. Of course not. Of course, I'm not going to find it right now. I had it before the jump. Of course, I don't want to put tape in the comic. Just looking at this is, I'll tell you right now, it's not just there. This Doc Ock figure. On page 83, this is a Neil Adams put those shadows there, the rendering, the musculature, and that is a Neil Adams face over a Ross Andru breakdown. Neil made sure that he polished this up so that it would be as fine as everyone was anticipating. This is what I was looking for right here on page 79. This is a face inked by Dick Giordano right there, first panel right there, his hands out. That face that I'm putting close to the camera, that is not a Neil Adams did not touch that face. He can't possibly touch everything. But that is one of the reasons that I was so in love with this book as a kid. I thought it was the greatest Superman. Neil Adams' Superman was being used primarily just for covers on Superman. His work on Batman, his covers on Superman were impact art. People bought them if Neil was drawing them, and he was. Neil Adams' Superman became the de facto Superman. He was so handsome, so chiseled, the perfect proportions. Every other Superman that has followed Neil has the ones that were super popular had implementations of Neil. John Byrne, Jim Lee, everyone has bit off Neil's breathtaking rendition of Superman. This is from my 2020 episode. Neil is also a very handsome man. In his younger days, people would comment that he drew Superman looking like himself, just something you should file away. When you see photos of Neil, sometimes with his shirt off, doing poses of Superman or famous Superman covers of Breaking the Chains, he did a couple different renditions of that. This is also 2 years before he would give us the single best illustrated comic book of all time, Superman Muhammad Ali. He was working himself into position here. Neil says to my face, as he pours through this, he says, he just kept saying Ross Andru is a great storyteller. I didn't want to take anything away from him. That's why I'm not in the credits. I'm going to do a double check. He is not in the credits. He's not even thanked. Neil just did this because he wanted the book to look, as he told me, as good as possible. He said, Rob, when are you going to get Superman and Spider-Man together again? This may never happen again. This is a big once-in-a-lifetime moment. The entire comic book industry is excited about this. I had to be a part. He said, Neil, in my opinion, is a master illustrator. Ross Andru is a fantastic comic book artist. Neil decided because of these renditions of these characters, especially Superman, were going to be seen by so many eyeballs that he would take it upon himself to enhance them. Neil said, Dick Giordano informed Ross Andru. Ross Andru said, that's fine. I'm fine. Neil said he took a kneaded eraser, a rubber eraser, and he dabbed on Ross's pages so that the pencils got lighter. If you've ever done that with your own art, you can see how you can just, to a certain level, keep dabbing, and it's almost going to disappear. So then there's just the hint of what Ross put down. Neil said he then went in with the pencil and would tighten up and restructure and add lighting. And again, I think the best word, enhance. Then Dick Giordano's inks would go on top of Neil, who was going on top of Ross Andru for these epic renditions. Now, here's the other thing. Did you know that Romita Sr. went in and touched up some of the Peter Parker and J. Jonah Jameson's faces as well? So we've talked about it on the show before. And when you see M hands ever in a comic book, especially from the 1970s or early 80s, M hands means many hands. D hands, inks by D hands, means diverse hands. They're clever little monikers that the companies came up with to tell you that many hands touch this issue, touch this page. There are entire issues of the Avengers, multiple issues of the Avengers. That's the one that I think of the most, that have the D hands, diverse hands. There's some issues of Tarzan by John Buscema that are inked by a majority of different people. And you go, hey, that's Dan Green, that's Klaus Janson, that's Neil Adams. Yep, Neil Adams. Neil, in his own words, said, Rob, I chiseled what Ross had put forth. I chiseled and I enhanced. And when it was finished, I felt like this is what the final product should look like, thinking in regards to production. It all stands out. The Neil pages, of which I'm going to say there's about a dozen, are standouts. And they're the big pages. They're the big momentous, like what we call the money shots, the big dramatic moments. And so I proudly had Neil sign my copy. And that 20 minutes that we dwelled, and he went through each page and said, that's me, Rob. Yes, that's me. Yes, that's me. I couldn't get to this. Spider-Man is granted a serum that for a brief period of time makes him as possible as Superman, which is why you get that page I showed you where he's able to level and pop Superman. But when it wears off, he knows, oh my gosh, I'm no longer to be in this fight. But it was a great way. You've really got this discovery factor in this original story with Spider-Man going like, I can't believe I'm this strong right now and able to punch this guy. And Superman, it's like, where did this guy get this kind of strength? But when you got Lex Luthor and you got Doc Ock as the villains, everything was meant to make sense. The Jerry Conway Avengers that he wrote, particularly there was a three-part Atlantis story with Namor, the Serpent Crown. It's George Perez illustrated it 1976. Giant standout, great moments for Iron Man, for Captain America, for Beast. He was a favorite of mine. Again, from Spider-Man, Avengers, all the different books that he had written. And he really, again, he's a guy who stepped up and met the moment on the story. Neil, the smile on Neil's face when we were done discussing this, he really enjoyed reliving it and sharing with another professional in detail what he had brought to the table. He reiterated, this is the best Ross Andrew job I'd ever seen. He had stepped up to the plate. I just felt like, I mean, and he was trying to be honest, but he's like, I'm Neil Adams. Like it's like, Devon George from the Lakers can take the court and he got an NBA contract and he can even get starters minutes, but he's not Michael Jordan, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So the published version of this, it's so funny. I see that I did call him the Michael Jordan of comics here. Neil told me, Rob, I loved polishing and inking other people, and I've mentioned this again, but I'm going to do it again. Whether it was John Buscema, whether it was Ross Andrew, whomever that he came in contact with, Gil Kane, Neil Adams inking Gil Kane. I've got a couple of those original pages. They're incredible to look at. Anytime you got a couple of masters working together, jamming, Neil understood how to bring out the best in these guys because he was simply the very best. This is my number 2. I've skipped over my number 3, but the original one, for the impact that it had, for the momentous arrival of Superman, of Spider-Man, this guy from Watergate. I didn't know it at the time. That's not why I loved it so much. You know why I loved it? For this and this and this giant size and DC and Marvel working together. 80 plus pages. This is what these deserve. The 20 some pages given to Deadpool Batman is my complaint. It's a little rinky dinky. I'm not sure that Jim Shooter gets into it here, but this was obviously a giant success. It was everything they had hoped for. David Obst was right to prod them, but following it up became a giant headache. I'm not sure that this is covered. Jim Shooter worked really hard to bring this to fruition, and he and Paul Levitz had quite a few different falling outs along the way. Jim maintains that he believes that it was very personal and that it kind of set the stage for all the ugly that would follow. Jim would set meetings. Paul would change them. Paul would say, then we need to meet here. Jim Shooter said, I'm going to be in Paris during that time and be overseas. I can't do it. Well, Jim, do you have a phone? Then you can join us by phone. Jim said he very much felt as if Paul Levitz was jerking him around. He's very obvious. I get all this from Jim's own words. He wrote this on his blog, on his Jim Shooter blog. You should read all of them. There's absolute gold in those hills. Having grown up with Jim's comics, getting his insight and everything from getting the license to G.I. Joe to the problems he had with DC management, especially when it came to these two. I'm more impressed now than ever that they're back working together because, as we've covered, Disney is now Marvel. Marvel is Disney. Warner Brothers is DC is Warner Brothers, which is their rival corps. They compete on every level in the entertainment world, especially at the box office. And having not done something in 2 decades, them getting back together for Deadpool and Batman is the gift. And then the upcoming Batman Deadpool. I recognize it for what it is. It's just a goofy kind of indulgence. I think the covers are fun. The idea that it exists in the first place is fun. I think the lead story deserved the 80 plus pages they were given as stuff like this. over some protracted, and we'll get into it some other time. We don't have time for it today, and even I like long podcasts. This ad showed up. This ad showed up in 1981. Oh my gosh, it's happening again. I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have known it from any other way. Ads were showing up in popular Marvel comics. Now, that one was DC's creative team. I didn't make that clear. These were all DC hires. Marvel had, weighed in, but Jerry Conway and Ross Andrew and Dick Giordano were really more of DC's picks. This is now time for Marvel. 5 years later, 1981, 1976, 1981. Bob Larkin was a huge illustrator that was doing a ton of work for Marvel, doing work especially on their magazines, the Hulk magazine, the magazines that they were doing that were corresponding with the Hulk TV show that was on CBS at the time. He was doing all manner of book covers. Bob Larkin, Larkin. Look him up. His work is beautiful. It's lush. He paints over John Buscema. That's a John Buscema drawn cover. Bob Larkin, in the same way that Alex Ross would paint over Dan Jurgens for the Superman Fantastic Four. So number 2 came. We're building out. Now we're getting Superman, Hulk. We're getting Wonder Woman, Spider-Man. Okay, I'm holding up Superman and Spider-Man number 2. Marvel Treasury Edition number 28. It is the first time they are paired back together. Now, remember how we went over backgrounds? I'm going to tell you something. John Buscema draws this Joe Sinnott. They had worked together on many, many, many issues of Fantastic Four and Thor. The backgrounds are inked by Terry Austin, Klaus Janson, Bob McLeod, Al Milgrom, Steve Leiolo, Walt Simonson, Joe Rubenstein, Bob Wyacek, Bob Layton. You put all those names in a book, and yes, I'm already avidly following names in comics: Jim Starlin, John Byrne, George Perez, Frank Miller, and I've seen all these guys ink. Bob McLeod has inked John Byrne and George Perez by this time in 1981. Bob Wyacek is on the scene. Walt Simonson is doing Battlestar Galactica. He's doing Star Wars. I go through here, and one of the fun things is determining who did what backgrounds. Yes, I can see the Terry Austin backgrounds. Yes, I can see the Walt Simonson backgrounds. But again, this time was the promise. You got John Buscema. I've mentioned him as one of the masters of the craft. We've already incorporated Neil Adams, one of my Mount Rushmores on the very first DC Marvel. One of my Mount Rushmores, drawing the second. John Buscema was their big gun. And Jim Shooter even said he was going to reward his guy. Look at this. Hulk popping up, bashing in Superman, them battling, Spider-Man and Wonder Woman face off, Doctor Doom and the Parasite. I mean, guys, to see John Buscema, one of the premier pencilers in comics, having Hulk punch Superman, and Superman and Hulk facing off, and Hulk realizing how formidable, how powerful. You guys know that Jim Shooter, who obviously passed, and we just send nothing but good wishes and great thoughts to him, he came into the business writing Superboy and the Legion as a teenager. He mailed scripts, and we've covered that. If you haven't heard that, that's a fact. He was the youngest hire ever in the history of comics to write comics. And so him writing Superman, writing Spider-Man, this is an all-time banger. I got this one at the U-Totem. We had moved. I no longer lived near the liquor store where I bought this one. I had my skateboard. I skated back as fast as I possibly could and consumed this. Laid over my bed, this on the floor, carefully turning each and every page. I probably spent a couple hours with this that day, just enraptured. Guys, stuff I never thought I'd see. Superman and Doctor Doom. You're seeing this stuff for the first time. And a lot of the stuff that I get to share with you, you have to see through fandom, experiencing it in real time in a way that we never possibly imagined. These are Terry Austin backgrounds on this exceptional Wonder Woman. Those are Terry Austin inks on the controls. That is a John Buscema, Joe Sinnott, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman figures. Okay, that amount of background inkers, you better believe you're going to have a good time figuring out who inked what. Another big, long, giant, extended. We've never seen a Marvel artist and Superman drawn the Marvel way. Okay, the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way comes out in 1978. Then boom, we're getting Big John Buscema, a master of the craft, just giving us all this incredible action. So I was just blown away by this. In real time, because of the added addition of Wonder Woman and Hulk, and the fact that Doctor Doom was my very favorite villain, getting this in this giant size Treasury edition, I thought Jim Shooter crushed it. uh, John Buscema, Joe Sinnott, all these crazy great background inkers. Get this book, check it out, see if you can find who inked each and every one of the backgrounds. The stuff that's going to not pop to you, the stuff that's going to be the most noticeable is the Walt Simonson, is the Terry Austin, is the Bob Layton, more of the stylistic guys. Here's another couple of sketches. Oh, baby. What could have been. There's another sketch in the back, a more of a rough sketch of John Buscema's pencils. Golden age, golden era. So you got the success. So my number 2 is the very first one. My number 3 is the second one. My number 4 is Batman and Hulk. But nothing holds a candle. Not since. Because this is the one that fandom, now we're getting announcements. Now the fan press is coming out. Now I'm buying this stuff. There's an announcement. X-Men, best-selling comic in the history of Marvel Comics at that time. Hottest book on the market. And the Teen Titans, DC's number 1 title, are crossing over. This is my original mangy. I got a mint edition one in a Mylar bag in my garage, but this is my original. This was a Saturday afternoon pickup. I was going to my aunt and uncle's to use the pool. This is an August release. I could not have gotten to their house, and the whole family's out. It's my family and my aunt and uncles, and they had the pool, and pools were a big deal when I was a kid. There was Facebook the other day, and it said, "What is something that someone had when you were a kid that meant they were well off?" And I said, "A pool," because we didn't have one, and our friends who had the big bougie houses, the doctors and the lawyers, the guys who ran construction, they had these amazing pools, and we would just always wait by the phone to get invited, and it was always so excited. Well, my aunt and uncle moved into a place that had a pool, and I got this in Fullerton at a comic store called Adventureland, and I hightailed it up, and I didn't go out to the pool for hours because I was so excited. I went in, and this is Walt Simonson, this is Terry Austin, and this is Chris Claremont, and I mean, look at Walt's, look at Walt's little improv IFC there. This is a stunning piece of art, one of the greatest Darkseid illustrations in the history of illustrating Darkseid, and just the very best combo of the X-Men and the Teen Titans charging you. Chris Claremont was at the top of his game. It's got Darkseid, it's got Phoenix, it's got Darkseid wanting to harness Phoenix. Who we all lost Phoenix a long time ago, but in this, we've got this alternate realm. You've got the Teen Titans. Walt Simonson depicting Apocalypse. A lot of people, I'm going to tell you, to this day, people are like, "Oh, it should have been John Byrne, it should have been George Perez." Well, neither of them had the time. Terry Austin was inking X-Men, had made all his bones inking X-Men, and he stepped in to ink Walt Simonson, who was on the rise. Chris formulates a really great story here of him wanting to harness the Dark Phoenix power of Darkseid. This epic, monumental greeting shot of the Titans, the most popular young characters at DC and X-Men, the number 1 selling franchise. This was a big fandom flex. This was the one that everyone was talking about, and the one thing they were talking about is, why isn't it bigger? Did we feel like we got a little ripped off? Yes, it's the first Marvel DC crossover that didn't go the way of the tabloid edition. When I asked Jim Shooter, he felt like they could sell more copies if it was comic book size, and it's hard to argue that. Did I want it in Treasury edition size? I did, and so did everyone else I knew, because that's what we knew. We knew when these got together, that was the special sauce. The Titans and the X-Men arrive on Apocalypse to give Darkseid hell. Walt draws a really nice. You got a brief Wolverine Deathstroke encounter here that's really fun. That kind of leaves more to the imagination. But with the X-Men and the Titans, you had echoes already. Perez and Wolfman were very honest that they were influenced by the success of what was going on in the Uncanny X-Men when they sought to create this new Titans vision, and it worked, because this is the best selling that the Titans ever were. But Starfire and Aurora were by fandom seen the same big giant opal eyes with very the pupils were never there, big big hairdos, voluptuous. You had Raven, who was kind of the mysterious dark child, and then you had Phoenix, who was Marvel's and the X-Men's kind of dark child. And then you had Colossus made of steel. You had Cyborg with mechanical and steel parts. I mean, some of these faces, the art is fantastic. The art is stunning. Robin, these DC characters drawn by Walt Simonson, who had drawn at Marvel. We've talked about it in the on the podcast. He did Hercules. He had drawn all manner of stories, waiting for his big break at DC Comics, and then he got his big break, ironically, at Marvel. This is the precursor to all the incredible excellence that he would shell out in regards to what he does with Thor and makes Thor the breakout hit of the next few years. But before he does that, you got Dark Phoenix Reborn. You got, the Omega Force being summoned by Darkseid. You've got Charles Xavier looking to act. I mean, this comic has it all. It has drama. It has stakes. Look at that Danger Room scene. Walt Simonson met the moment. Ross Andrew met the moment. Garcia Lopez met the moment. Dan Jurgens met the moment. John Buscema met the moment. These guys knew how big and important this was, and nobody hesitated to give anything less than their absolute very best. Here's another Wolverine, Deathstroke face-off. These dark sides, you could always tell that Walt was a giant Kirby guy, loved Kirby, loved to see Kirby, incorporated into his own work. But where fandom was at the time, with how popular X-Men was, with how Titans was popular, they were both the number one comics, which I can't say that Superman and Spider-Man were when they teamed up. Maybe they were. But these are definitely the two top Titans in fandom. Look at that. Look at just the staging, the stakes, the interaction, the quips, the Titans and the X-Men getting around. This is my number one. It has never been surpassed. It is a perfect comic. It is a 10 of 10. X-Men Titans. Now, they reprinted it in the 90s. And so, I get to play around with this one, but this one's on my spinner rack. It's beat up. I have a nice, juicy, mint condition copy. I also have a CGC slab in the safe. But I like to flip through them in their original formats. Even this reprint prints the pages smaller, okay, which is weird. But you've got to. I want to show you this really nice Kid Flash sequence because I love. Oh man, I think Kid Flash has just got a great costume. He's just a great looking character. Marvel DC. This was a really exciting time, and I sat next to George Perez at the Creation Convention in 1983, and he said after he did JLA Avengers, it was his up at bat with Marv Wolfman and George Perez taking on the Titans X-Men. This was X-Men Titans. That was going to be Titans X-Men. Marvel was going first because it was their at bat. DC had done Batman Hulk, and DC had produced the first Superman Spider-Man. Marvel had done the second Superman Spider-Man, and so it was there at bat again. They went with Uncanny X-Men Titans. George says, I'm going to do JLA Avengers, and then we are going to work into the sequel. And he said, Rob, we have the Brotherhood of Evil, which they did, and then the Hellfire Club, which what was going to be it was going to be the Brotherhood of Evil and the Hellfire Club, two great deep benches of evil bad guys that George, and he was telling me he can't wait to have the Titans infiltrate the Hellfire Club because he loves those characters and he couldn't wait to draw them. And he thought that the Brotherhood of Evil that the new Brotherhood of Evil that they had introduced in the pages of the Teen Titans were going to be even more exciting. I'll have to get together with Marv Wolfman just to pick his brain about the entirety of that story because George had it. They had talked it over. He was ready to jump into it. He wanted to contribute because he knew how rare and how special these were. And I have no doubt that George would have met the moment. I stand by the fact that I did not love JLA Avengers when he got together and did it finally. I am so glad that they were able to, and maybe that's where the discussions took place for them to start doing this again, because I've devoted now an hour and 19 minutes to discussing very important moments in not just my fandom, but the fandom of everybody who is roughly my age. This was somebody's first, okay? Batman Hulk was somebody's first. The second Spider-Man Superman was somebody's first. Not all of us started at the beginning. This was celebrated. This was buzzed about. This was a book that really, and I credit Chris Claremont. He really stepped to the plate. He is credited as sole writer. Walt Simonson penciler, Terry Austin. Okay, and just what a fantastic indulgence. All of these are. They're incredible, and there have been many. And no, I did not want to talk Marvel versus DC. That's its own event. I didn't want to do Amalgam. That's its own event. These are the sole team up books and where I rank them. And for me, X-Men Titans is number one. The original Superman Spider-Man is number two. The sequel Superman Spider-Man that came out in 1981, the second one, is my number three. Batman and Hulk Batman is number four. And of course, Dan Jurgens' Superman Fantastic Four is my number five. Yours are going to different. Yours are going to be different. Your mileage may vary than mine. The original Spider-Man, Superman, like I said, just has all of that extra attention with the greatest illustrator in the history of comic books stepping in to enhance and make sure our experience is even better and bigger and bolder. And the John Buscema treatment of Superman and that cast of characters and Wonder Woman, and seeing Superman and Hulk and Spider-Man and Wonder Woman face off and Jim Shooter sink his teeth into this great Doctor Doom story. There's a really clever end. I thought this was really great. This is how Doctor Doom would get the upper hand. And it seemed a little bit of a letdown after all the action and all the interactions, but it's what Doom would do. It fit. Very clever story. Garcia Lopez on the big canvas with those giant figures of Hulk and Batman fighting. Spectacular. Cannot get enough of that stuff. Incredible. These books are fantastic. If you can seek them out, if you can revisit them, it'll put a smile on your face. Because that's what this is about. As I wrap up, I want to talk about comic books as distractions. Because sometimes, well, comic books as escape. And comic books as an escape have never been more important to me now than ever. I told you the last time that we talked that I went on my phone recently to try and escape, to try and kind of distract. Didn't work. Saw a lot of chaos, saw a lot of anger, saw a lot of lashing out, both all sides just throwing rocks at each other online. Whoa, didn't want that. Put my phone down, went and grabbed a comic book, grabbed a sketch pad, drew comic book ideas. Comic books, movies, all this stuff, it serves as our escape. And I've never, as a 57, soon to be 58-year-old man who's seen a lot, done a lot, proud of all the work I put in with my wife, my marriage, my kids, raising my kids, watching them start families, get married, expand, pursue their careers. I got a daughter. I can't believe my daughter, my youngest little gem, is in her senior year in college. And as I've said, the chaos all around us has just never felt more dangerous. And so for me, I look at things that make me happy. And I've always told you, I go out, I grab ice cream with my wife. We go on a ride in the Jeep. We walk around the lake. We have great calls with our kids. We visit with them in person. We go see movies. We go on date nights with our friends. We go to church. I watch I watch old videos. I hunt down old shows. I revisit entire seasons of shows that have been off the airs for 30 years. But it's my escape, and it puts me in a better, a happier, a more inspired place, because art inspires me. And one of the guys that inspired me, who has left this mortal coil, I went and I grabbed my laser disc. Some of you guys, what's a laser disc? What's a laser disc player? So I've been waiting. I knew that the day was soon. One half of the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid left us a long time ago in Paul Newman. This is my favorite movie of all time. Whenever you've asked me, anybody who's seen me, I've committed it to print, on X, on social media over the last several years. It's always Robert Redford. It's always going to be Robert Redford. It's him and Paul Newman in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This is my favorite movie. Robert Redford is my favorite movie star. My mom and dad grew up Sunday night movies. For those of you who grew up in the 70s and the 80s, CBS, ABC, they had Sunday night movies. Competing, whatever had been big in the theaters. After 3 years, that was generally the wait. Close Encounters would come. Star Wars would come. I'd already now be seeing these movies in theaters. But when I grew up in 1975, 1974, it was Butch Cassidy. It was The Sting. It was 3 Days of the Condor. It was Jeremiah Johnson. Robert Redford's entire film library, The Way We Were. All of these movies were on all the time. Robert Redford was, as you study his filmography, it's not just his incredible looks and his charisma and his presence, it's his voice. He had a very distinct voice and way of speaking. This was, to me, he's the greatest movie star of all space and time. We can argue that, but he is to me. I'm not going to say that my take on the matter is your take on the matter, and I'm a lot older. But Tom Cruise is the closest thing to Robert Redford I'd ever seen, and I was alive for both of their peaks. All the President's Men, 3 Days of the Condor, as I said, The Sting, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I said, Joy, this is where you don't get Lethal Weapon, you don't get 48 Hours, you don't get the buddy cop movie without this. This incredible movie redefined westerns and buddy cop pictures. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid feels like when you can watch it today and you feel like it was written today. It's the way they talk, the ease with which Newman and Redford play off of each other, the way that their banter, their dialogue, their wit. I never saw a bad Robert Redford movie. And then, of course, he moved into a career as a director, and we were fortunate in the early 90s. Throughout from about 1995 to about 2001, 2002, when we went to the Sundance Film Festival. My sister-in-law, Joy's sister, was a producer on movies like Paris, Texas, I think that's the name, But I'm a Cheerleader. Those are a few that come to mind. They played at Sundance, and she was suddenly finding herself, there's a Jennifer Love Hewitt and a Will Ferrell early movie, late 90s, maybe the year 2000. About a band getting back together. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue, but she produced that as well. My sister-in-law produced a bunch of movies in the late 90s, worked with a bunch of different companies, different investors, and she kept delivering these movies that were hits and arrived and were shared. And Sundance hadn't become Sundance yet. It was starting. It was climbing. And in the 2000s, we started having kids, and we couldn't make that trek every January anymore. But once upon a time, before one of the screenings, it's his, it was his film festival. Lo and behold, Robert Redford showed up. Robert Redford showed up. It's not Paris, Texas. I knew I said it wrong. I'm going to get it real quick. I'm going to go here. But it's one of Kate Hudson's earliest films, and again, and we were just so excited for my sister-in-law who was just banging out all of these movies that kept landing at Sundance. But Robert Redford was there, and I was able to just shake his hand, just be a fanboy, and was just so completely taken and enraptured. But by how incredibly, just in the moment, charismatic. It's called Desert Blue. That's the. I just kind of lose track of sight in regards to some of these films because it's so long ago. But these are the. There's Leanna Creel right there. Leanna Creel coming up. That's my sister-in-law. Joy's last name is Creel. Okay, that faded. But she is the producer, executive producer, and Desert Blue. My bad, not Paris, Texas. What am I thinking? That's a Harry Stanton film. But if you ever go through Leanna Creel's IMDb, you can check it out and see that she was making a lot of movies. They were all getting to Sundance. And this was one of the earliest ones, Desert Blue, and this is the movie poster for Desert Blue. I know my reflective screen is not helping anybody, but Robert Redford, Sundance, saw him there each and every year, encountered him one specific year, and just so excited. Went to a midnight show at Sundance for the premiere of When We Were Kings, Muhammad Ali and Rumble in the Jungle, and Harvey Weinstein, obviously now very problematic man who's in jail, but was there. It was the buzz. The Sundance Film Festival was so funny. Jimmy J, who I have had on this show many times, he was starting to crash all the Sundances with us. We have pictures of the two of us in the late '90s hanging out, going to movies, going to you'd have to collect your tickets and go to the different film festivals. Sundance Film Festival, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000. We were just having the very best time. And film festivals, now are whether it's Telluride or Toronto, New York. That there's so many of these great film festivals. I never went to as many. I never went to one as many as I did Sundance. Again, a testament to Robert Redford as a storyteller, as someone that curated other storytellers, that promoted young talent, young storytellers, and one of my favorite movie stars of all time. I will definitely be revisiting his film biography again. I watch these movies once each and every year. My family will tell you, 3 Days of the Condor, All of the President's Men, and Butch Cassidy, Jeremiah Johnson. Those four movies are in annual circulation as it is. When my kids were little, probably 10, 8, and 7, the local theater here was showing Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I was able to take the entire family, and they were wowed. Again, when Joy saw this Laserdisc, she's like, I get it. I didn't know that. I see what you're saying. When there's no 48 Hours, there's no buddy cop movie, there's no Lethal Weapon without Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I can go on and on. Just wanted to give Robert Redford, somebody who makes me think of my mom and dad, unites me with early childhood memories, coming home after church, plopping down on the couch, watching Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, because we were home by 9 o'clock, watching The Sting, watching The Way We Were, watching All the President's Men, watching Jeremiah Johnson. Robert Redford, thank you, sir, for all you did for all the artists, as a director, as a producer, as a curator, as the owner of Sundance, and as a generational iconic actor and presence. Guys, thank you always for listening to this show. I wanted to revisit Marvel and DC today. I wanted to tell you which ones were my top 5. I did that. When I am not doing the show, I am on X at Robert Liefeld, RobertLiefeld. Blue check says it's me. I'm always there. I'm talking to you. I'm listening to your replies, your comments, your DMs. I won't argue with you. That's not going to happen. You can drop me some insults or whatever. We just won't. I'll mute you and you're gone. Everybody else, we talk movies, we talk sports, we talk comics. It's a blast. I love it. I love how it unites all of us across the world on this platform called X at Robert Liefeld. Blue check. That's me. On Instagram, we're doing some new stuff, some fun stuff. I got social media people now, okay? And we're trying to give you some fun content, expand what we were doing, evolve. You guys are joining us for the ride. Thank you for all the new people who are jumping on over on Instagram at Rob Liefeld, RoberLiefeld, blue check mark. Again, signifies that I am the real deal. I am the genuine article. That is me reading and responding to your comments, your messages, your replies, your DMs. Thank you so much for following me over on Instagram. We are on TikTok now. Really engaged on TikTok. We awakened the corpse. We really revived an account that had been dead, and that is me. I'm posting TikTok, Rob Liefeld. I'll look for you over there. Same thing. We're doing some interesting content, putting stuff together, past, present, future, giving you a glimpse as to what's to come and what's the here and now and what happened yesterday. Maybe looking at everything with a fresh lens on TikTok, on Instagram. Rob Liefeld on TikTok, Rob Liefeld Instagram, Robert Liefeld on X. We have a group on Facebook. It's called Rob Liefeld, Marvel, Extreme, and Beyond. We would love to have you visit us, join us. Myself or a gentleman named Terry Sala, Sala, will jump you on through. We have exciting artists always participating in our art contests that are happening every 1 or 2 weeks. Many of them are on the queue. We have a fan comic that we will commit to publishing in 2026. And so many of you have already submitted stuff that I'll be getting forms to you that you sign, and because those are my characters, but you are going to sign over the rights and you're going to get paid and you're going to get a comic book. But we got to see your stuff first. You got to be part of these contests. You got to do some memorable stuff, and there's a great audience that is participating. They vote for it. There's nothing but a acknowledgement that you won, that you get. There's no prize, but we are definitely cultivating some of you great talents for a extreme, maybe a Youngblood themed Extreme Studios extreme universe of characters sketchbook, pinup book, just art book. And we have great contests, not just contests. We have great conversations. Each and every episode of the Rob Liefeld Show, featuring Robservations, is given a dedicated post over there for you to discuss. For those of you to talk over the contents and tell me and others what you like. And maybe what was something that was new to you. We have a great time. We keep it so fun, so clean, so up with people. No trolls, no fighting. We don't instigate that stuff. We don't want it. It's a good time. Come visit us. Visit us. It is a virtual comic book living room. Just don't put your cigarettes out on my carpet, and don't spill your drinks on my sofa if you get my drift. On Whatnot, we've been blowing up. Rob Liefeld, Whatnot. And when I go live, watch either my Instagram, my X account, my TikTok. I'll be telling you when I go somewhere like a Whatnot or over on eBay to live stream. We are crushing it. So much new stuff. This is the time of the year that we are just going to have an avalanche. We have New York Comic Con exclusive products that you should get from me at New York Comic Con. We'll be promoting some of that stuff on the live stream. We've got all manner of new Youngblood comics that are coming out. Youngblood is meeting with a giant, resounding reception of positive energy, and I can't tell you how thrilled it is. It makes drawing the pages that much more fulfilling. Thank you for leaning all the way into Youngblood coming back, for the 27 retail covers that jumped on board on top of the already incredible band of covers by Ryan Stegman, Ryan Otley, by Eric Gist, Daniel Warren Johnson, Kyle Nagu, okay, Mark Spears. We got so many great covers coming. We've got covers coming up from Kari Andrew. We've got covers coming up that you haven't seen from Dan Frega. We've got Tyler Kirkham. Trust me, you are going to dig this stuff. I am so excited to have you guys on board. Thank you. The live stream is where we give you the exclusive signatures, the remarks, the sketches, the artwork. So Rob Liefeld on Whatnot. Look for me on eBay. Those notifications will be shared with you via all the different social media platforms that I have already shared with you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for powering this show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the word of mouth. I try and give you facts. I give you figures. I give you backgrounds. Hopefully, this was new news to you today, that an agent for two of the most famous journalists of all time in a very tumultuous time, which was Watergate, told the publishers of Marvel and DC to get their act together and give us what we want. And then all of these incredible masters, two of my Mount Rushmores, jumped in and contributed to some of the best Marvel and DC crossovers ever. Maybe you have your favorite. You can tell me in the comments. On Apple, on Spotify, on YouTube, you can share that with me. I'll look forward to reading those. I try and respond to every one of them. You guys, I'm always asking if your mental, your physical, your spiritual, and your emotional health are okay, if you're doing well. I mean it. I'm there with you every day. We have burdens to carry. We have stuff we're wrestling with. Do not let the grind get you down. Step away. Get some me time. Escape into a book, a movie, your loved ones, your wife, your girlfriend, interact with your kids, your friends. Grab that coffee that you've been putting off. The experiences that we share with each other are the richest ones. It's the ones that I dwell on and I remember. The memories of this last summer as it comes to a close are the trips I took with my wife, the times I spent with my family, the dinner that we all got together and had in San Diego amidst the craziness of Comic-Con. We all got together and we just stared at each other and ate food for 3 hours, and it was a great time. And then we all went and we consumed our favorite pastime, which is ice cream. That's the stuff that sticks with you. You got to make time. You got to make a reservation. You got to carve out that time to make that happen. I am always thinking of you. I wish for you nothing but the best. We are all in this together. Let's be more united than we are divided. You guys, wishing you all the best. 2 fist bumps into this blue Yeti mic. Right back to you. I'm going to be back. You know it. I'll be here, right there. Pick me up. Do not leave me behind. We will most definitely, absolutely, and inevitably, we're going to talk again real soon.